Because of my personal experience, I'm a bit more in tune to my patients, and I have sympathy, and I actually understand what they're going through. I was born in Vietnam. I was born during the war and came to the United States in 1981 as a refugee. And my family actually spent about 13 months or so in a refugee camp in Malaysia. When we arrived, at that time there were about 50,000 refugees in that little camp. And the average death at that time was, I think, about one a day or so. I was sexually assaulted when I was in the camp, and that was the cause of the suicide attempt. But then think about what my family and I have gone through and how my suicide would affect them afterward, and that's what stopped it. Everybody at that time wanted to come to America. I had an aunt on my mom's side was already here in the United States. Of all places, Lincoln, Nebraska. We didn't have shoes, we were on slipper. We were given jackets though, that was good. And we came and it was just very different. I've never seen snow before. It was very cold. We were greeted by a Catholic priest. He paid a few months' rent ahead of time for us, and we just stayed there in the house. There was a heater, but we didn't have any beds. There was nothing. My parents were very adamant that we don't want to rely on the social system. The first day that I came to the United States, that very same night, my cousin who worked in a Chinese restaurant already asked his boss and offered me a job as a busboy, and I took the job. I borrowed his clothes, I borrowed his shoes, and I went to work the same night. Arrived here in the United States at lunchtime. That evening I went to a Chinese restaurant and worked as a busboy, and my family would together go clean apartments and houses. The whole family carry buckets, walk about 40 blocks at a time, 50 blocks at a time, just to go clean houses to earn a living. I was having nightmare of the assault, and also nightmare of what happened after the war in Vietnam, things that I saw, and then the journey from Vietnam to the refugee camp. It was quite brutal as well. So I learned a way to cope with it, and the way to cope with it is if you work yourself hard to the point where your body just exhausted and fatigued, then you fall asleep at night easily without having the nightmare. The first time that truly I received treatment was when I was in medical school. That was when the depression and the PTSD got really bad. And the second suicide attempt happened when I was in medical school. And I was not making it in medical school. And one of the assistant dean was very concerned. So I got called in, and they couldn't explain why I wasn't doing well in school. I didn't realize that that was depression that I was suffering from. I wasn't willing to talk about the sexual assault because, you know, men, we don't talk about those kind of things. We're not supposed to be sexually assaulted. And they refer me to therapists, psychologists, but he never dealt with refugee. He didn't know. And so the recommendation was, let's do a complete battery of psychological testing. Lucky for me at that time, there was a Korean psychiatrist. Then immediately she knew it was PTSD and it was depression. And something about her, I guess the comfort of seeing an Asian psychiatrist make me talk about it. I was fascinated with transplant surgery. The immunology aspect of it was very interesting to me, fascinating. So that's why I went to medical school. But because of the depressions and the treatments, then the psych rotation as a medical student, I started to have an interest in psychiatry, talking to patients, finding out why they got to the point where they were, you know, hurt, got shot or broken arm. I wanted to know what I can do to help them. People come in, they get their body fixed, and then they went right back out to the same environment that caused them to have those trauma. And the intervention was not on time, and I found that very difficult. I knew I wanted to do psychiatry. Currently, my role for the county is a psychiatrist and also in charge of our training department. I talk about my own recovery in training. I don't hide it. I'm able to explain to them the experience, what to look for in terms of getting on treatment, what to look for in terms of seeing a therapist. We work very hard in Orange County in reducing stigma, and we strongly believe that because of cultural issues, there are barriers in treatment. And culture here doesn't mean just linguistic and ethnic, but it could be people who are homeless, people who are veterans, people who are from LGBT community, folks who historically speaking have not been able to access treatment very easily, whether it be the barriers created by the system or the barriers that are perceived by the community. In my opinion, you don't have to look like your clients to be culturally competent in providing services. You just have to have the willingness to learn about your client's culture, to understand the differences between you and your client, and to respect those differences. I'm co-hosting a Vietnamese talk show called Viet View. Our show is actually bilingual. We use English and Vietnamese together, and our intention is to bring the different generation together. Most of the topic that we talk about is related to health, specifically mental health. We want to bring topic to the family's table so that when the show is done, family continue to have conversation. Different culture see mental illness very differently, especially in the Asian culture. It's still a subject that we don't talk about. In fact, even my own relative don't know anything about depressions, and when I try to help them, denial is rampant, right? And so when you deal with a client and you give them a diagnosis, you really have to spend time and talk to that client and explain it, and also get your client's perspective and what does that mean for them now that they have that diagnosis. A lot of young people have depression and are not aware of it or not seeking treatment because of shame themselves, or the parents don't want them to get treatment. But I think that depression is not treated in a younger age could continue. I mean, it's a lifelong. It is never something that you treat and it'll go away. I mean, you have to, and that's the reason why I strongly believe in psychotherapy as well, is that you got to learn skills and technique to help you go through the life. The medication is only a part of it. The other piece is the psychosocial issues, the individual therapy, working out the issue, working out the trauma in my case, and then learn how to cope with it. Because life is always ups and downs, as we all know. A situation would happen, and you just need to learn the triggers, and you just need to learn when to go back for treatment. Hope is very important. On top of the list of any recovery movement or model, this word hope is significant. And hope, you mean not just the individual, but people around them, their family member, their clinician also have to be helpful and give an individual hope, because I think with hope we can survive through anything. I always tell my student and clinician is that we have to be aware of ourselves. We could one moment be a hope giver, but the next moment be a hope stealer. You can never use a diagnosis and then give someone, especially someone who's young, a life sentence of nothingness. I think that's the cruelest thing anyone can ever do to a person. So I've always very encouraging towards my clients and helping them reaching whatever goal that they set out for themselves.